You've been listening to the Man Up God's Way podcast. Visit us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and our website, manupgodsway.org. A show that dives into the real, raw, and relevant issues for men and their faith, life, and community. Now, your host, Jody Burkeen.
You gotta love technology, don't you? All right. Well, guys, here we are again on another Monday night. My name is Jody Burkeen. I am the founder of Man Up God's Way, a men's ministry birthed out of a desire to see men do Christianity and stop being spiritual sissies and actually step into the role that God has called them to be, both in their lives, their own lives, in a personal relationship, and their as a husband, to be unified, one flesh with their wife, and to be godly fathers. And we are excited that you are here tonight. We are live on all fronts. We are on Facebook. We have our Man Up God's Way page that has over 875,000 followers. We got our private men's group, which is called Man Up God's Way Community. Men, you can join that. Just answer the questions and we'll let you in, and we want you to be a part of that community. And then we also have our new app, and this is a premier app that we're excited about. We're going to try to get away one of these days away from social media, so we have our own control over the app, and it's a community app, and we would love for you to join it. It's called the Man Up God's Way app. It is on iTunes and Google Play, and so you can check that out as well. And just so you guys know how we pay for this podcast, we have merchandise that we would love for you guys to get a hold of. This is my water bottle. It's got Man Up God's Way logo on it here. My massive, awesome, this is a manly coffee mug. This will hold a half a pot of coffee, which that's the way I like to start my mornings off. And then to go along with that, we have our Man Up God's Way coffee itself. And this stuff is some good, bold, good coffee. And then you can check out our books, Man Up, Becoming a Godly Man in an Ungodly World, on Amazon, as well as Pursuit of a Godly Life, Living Like Jesus Matters. It's a excerpt of 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 5 through 12, where we break down the virtues of the characteristics of a godly person, and we break down each one of those virtues into a chapter to make it easy for you to understand how to grow as a Christian man. We'd love for you to get those. They're inexpensive, and it does help us pay for this podcast. So, Fregosa, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, man.
That was a mouthful, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, you're getting it. Do you? Yeah, all things well, man. I got no complaints right now.
How was your weekend?
It was good. I'm back. I'm just trying to get settled in. Too many days off. I was talking to one of my buddies about it.
If I had your money, I'd burn mine.
Yeah. I think I took a good maybe 2 months off. Like, really, I haven't been focusing much on anything else other than trying to get a few projects off the ground and, not focused on the day job. But it turns out if you don't show up to work, they don't pay you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to kick that back on a little bit and start stashing some coins away.
So when do we get to hear the worship album?
So yeah, with Discover Church, they sent me some stems, which are like little snippets of each individual part, which means they're getting close. If they have stems and then they're starting to get there, and I'm hoping 3 more weeks maybe.
Oh, that's good.
Tops. I'd like to see it in the next month. That's on their timeline. God's timeline and whatnot. But yeah, I'm excited for it.
Awesome, dude. I can't wait to hear it. Hey, I sent you that song the other day from Josh Garrels, and I want to play it here real quick. Josh Garrels is a Christian artist, but it's not like your mainstream Christian music, which, sometimes that stuff can put you to sleep. I know we've got a station here called, I'm not going to actually call their name out, but here in St. Louis, it's a Christian station. It just seems like they play the same thing over and over and over again. And I found this guy about 6 months ago, and man, I've just really just fallen in love with with him. It's called Born Again, this name of this song. Listen to this. We love to promote new music and good music. This guy's got some really good music. So Josh Garrels, if you get an opportunity to go listen to him, he's on Spotify or iTunes as well. So it's pretty good. And your music, your writing sounds a lot like that. So
that's a compliment. I listened to his stuff. He's got some skills. So
yeah, you've got some deep writings. I like that. So does this guy. So But well, cool. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here. And
Always, man.
I know it. I love having you. So, man, we've got some great guests tonight. I'm really excited about this ministry that we have here called Dad Camp, and we're excited to meet Jason and Matt, who I have here with us. So we'll start off with Jason. Jason, how you doing, brother?
Great. It's just great to be here. Just love what you guys are doing. Been listening to the last few episodes of the podcast as I've kind of heard about you and got familiar with you. So it's been great to just be grown and challenged through what you guys are doing, and to have a chance to share a little bit of our story tonight. So thanks for having us.
Well, we're glad you're here, man. That's awesome. We were actually introduced by Shelby Craig, who actually does all my merch and my merchandise, and he's out of Tennessee, and he's promoting it. He had the video on our Man Up community page, and he's promoting it big time. So we're excited.
Jody, he got a nickname last year at one of our events. You want to know what that is?
What is it? Yeah,
kind of hold that. He's known as the Tennessee Water Bear.
Tennessee Water Bear, and why is that?
Next time you see Shelby, you just
okay.
Say,
I'll ask him.
You can ask him. Tennessee Water Bear.
The Tennessee Water Bear. Okay.
We'll leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that.
Awesome. All right. Well, Jason, good to have you here. Matt, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. Just humble and honored to be a part of what you guys are doing and to partner with you. And of course, Jason and I with Dad Camp have a real big passion for reaching men for Christ. And it was exciting to me to hear about your ministry, to check out some recent podcast episodes, and see some other men that are out there really getting it done and reaching men's hearts for Christ. So I'm excited.
Amen. It's a small group of people that are trying, but man, there's a lot of guys out there that I get to meet all the time that are really they have a passion to reach the men. And as you guys know, the stats are off the charts, man. If you can reach the man of the family, man,
yes,
the whole family just comes to know the Lord, and it changes them. And I know you guys know that, but I wish pastors knew that. You know, as a pastor myself, one of my main responsibilities is ministry to the men. You know, I preach to the congregation, and I minister to the families, but man, my number one goal is to reach the man and to make church feel like it's a place where they can come and comfortable, and they can bring their family, and they know that they're going to get good godly teachings, and hold them accountable. And the men who grab a hold of that, man, it changes their lives in a good way.
Absolutely.
Jody, you are speaking our language. I was in full-time ministry myself for about 15 years before going full-time here with Dad Camp. But over the years, it just got, for me, just so frustrating. Like, when you think of that saying, what basket should we throw all our eggs in? And it just seems to me that the church is missing that. Like, we need to be throwing the eggs in the basket of reaching as many men as we can, knowing that, like you said, when you reach a man, you reach a family. But when you look at our churches and our church budgets and our church focuses, right, you just don't see that type of attention. And I think that's where just not being effective the way we should be, as the local church, we're not targeting our guys and calling them to lead their families well. So yeah, right. Couldn't agree more.
Amen. As a matter of fact, that less than 10% of all churches can have a substantial men's ministry.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary with, man, all the stuff that's going on, especially what's going on, in society today, really pushing men off to the wayside. Everything from TV to politics to the woke side, everything. They're just trying to get rid of the male completely and feminize everything to an extent. Even the guys, which I don't get. It just drives me crazy. So we're glad you guys are doing what you're doing, because one of the things that I've been doing men's ministry, Man Up God's Way started off in 2012. And so I've been doing that for 10 years and then pastoring for 7 years in that. And I still travel. I do conferences all across the nation. We have an international outpost in Haiti as well, where we have 40 pastors where we're training them to teach, to reach their men. I know that you guys are doing a lot of stuff in Africa as well, and you know that like the homeless or the fatherless rate is like 95%. Or I know it is in Haiti. I don't know if it's that high in Africa, but you know, one of the things that I always see men do. There's a couple things I see men do specifically. One, they don't get engaged with church. They don't get engaged with Jesus, and so they're kind of off to the side while their family sometimes comes to church, and that's not even 100%. But a lot of times, what I see is men will actually bypass the marriage to become pretty okay dads. You know, they forget the marriage. They forget that, you know, that's till death do you part. And then they try to focus so much on their kids that they forget about their wife. And then now one of the largest statistics that we have in the United States is empty nester divorces. You know, the couple that's sitting across the breakfast room table going, I don't even know you. Yeah. Who are you? So, tell me how you guys, Jason, I'll start with you. Tell me how you guys are trying to reach the men, not only to be better dads, but to be better husbands. What are you guys doing in that process as you bring them there with their kids? What are you guys doing to kind of pepper that in with your message?
So, you know, what's unique about Dad Camp is that this is an event that where kids join their dads, not where dads join their kids. And I think so often there's so many things that we as parents that our kids are doing. There's so many options. There's so many activities. We're so kid focused. It's all about the kids. And where we found there to be a unique way to reach a man is actually through his kids, but we've designed what we do. All of our programming is targeting dad. And so kids get to join their dads for a weekend. So they think it's the greatest thing ever because I got dad all to myself for a weekend and we're going to build memories and we're going to have a ton of fun. But everything that we're doing is we are pouring everything that we've got, all of our energy into the dad, just believing that when we pour into a father and, you know, and the Lord just kind of reignites his heart for his family, that he's going to in turn then pour into his family and into his kids.
Right. And
so everything that happens at Dad Camp, from a programmatic standpoint, we're thinking about dad and thinking about how to equip him, how to inspire him, how to remind him how much he matters to his family, you know, just how much value he holds. When we live in a culture, like you said earlier, that is devaluing us as men, that's devaluing us as fathers, we want to remind them that no one matters more than they do, you know, for the health and well-being of their family. And so we first and foremost say, you know, without you pouring your first energies into your marriage, if for those of them that are married,
right,
you know, that's where it all begins. That's the foundation. And so a lot of our programming is reminding them that's, you know, Jesus first, you know, find that relationship, find that friendship with Jesus that will lead you then into friendship and leading your wife well, leading your family well. So, and that, you know, I think that just, it kind of filters down. But we just pour ourselves first and foremost. It's not kid centric. It's not an activity-based event. This is a dad-focused event where he becomes equipped and empowered to go home and re-engage with his family in a way that he never has before.
That's good. That's good. Matt, what do you see on your end? I know that you're pretty steeped into the operations of it and the teaching. What do you see and how are you trying to, you know, help pass that message on as well?
Yeah. It's a great opportunity when I get in front of the dads to remind them of the hierarchy. It's God first. We have Jesus, you know, in the center and the head of our marriage. Then it's your wife. Then it's your kids. Amen. And I think just we're battling a cultural message that says something different. You know,
Right.
I've even had people look at me like, well, no, like your kids are the most important thing. And you've pointed out something. If you pour all of your energy into your children and not into your marriage, into your spouse, what happens when the children are gone? There's
Right.
no relationship there. And I even, you know, we talk about respecting women and respecting our wives, but I know that some of the dads that come there are not married. And
Right.
so we talk about leading their children and setting example by loving and respecting their mom, even if they're
Right.
not married to them, even if they're not with them at the time. And that's really where we're trying to show them. I guess one of the best ways I could describe it is we're trying to fight a cultural narrative of what manhood is.
Yes.
And I think you
Exactly.
even mentioned this on the, I think it was the most recent episode where you guys were talking to a young man who wrote a book about depression.
Yes.
But you were saying, you know, this, you know, chewing on bullets and, you know, bending iron and this kind of this hyper masculinity is not what manhood is about.
Right.
In one of my recent teachings, I was saying, you know, we believe Jesus was the manliest man that ever walked the earth.
Mm.
And if we were to follow his example, he turns the culture and the world's definition of manhood upside down.
Yes.
He's not fighting for his rights. He's laying them down. He's not looking for his best interest, but he's giving up his best interest for others. If we can get dads to be in the family and say, you're the spiritual leader of the family. That role wasn't designed to be carried by your wife. It was designed to be carried by you. But that doesn't mean laying the hammer down.
Yes.
And that everybody
Amen.
follows you because of that. It means when your wife and your children see that you will literally lay your life down for them every day, that you'll put them ahead of your own wants and needs, of course they're going to follow you.
Right.
So that's one of the messages I think that we're trying to get that aligned with God, marriage, children, and what spiritual, real manhood and leadership looks like in the home.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, I always try to take guys a lot of times, you know, when I first got saved, I read Ephesians 5 and, you know, it's the marriage part where Paul is telling the church how to, you know, how marriage should be. And it starts off, wives submit to your husbands. And I ran to my wife and I was like, hey, look at this. Look, this is what you're supposed to do.
I love that part.
Yeah, exactly. She goes, well, finish reading the rest of it. And I was like, oh, crap. So I read the rest of it. And, you know, it's that whole, it's sacrificing yourself for your family. It's, you know, loving, it's loving your wife as Christ loved the church. Well, how did Christ love the church? Well, he sacrificed himself for it. That's how we love our wives. And I think it's like you said a while ago, we don't teach, you know, hyper masculinity. We teach, you know, humble masculinity, how
Yes.
you know, learn to fall down on your knees when you need to, you know, pray to God, when you're communicating with your wife, when y'all need to talk, when you're teaching your children instead of correcting them all the time. Like that's learning, and then learning to be a servant on top of that. That's true masculinity.
Absolutely.
And that's not being taught. Well, unfortunately, most men are not teaching their children this.
Right.
You know, and so where are they going to go? They're going to go to TikTok. They're going to go to social media. They're going to go to the rest of the world to see, you know, how am I supposed to act? Well, the rest of the world is going crazy. And if fathers aren't involved in their children's lives, then you're going to have a lot more. I don't think we've seen major problems yet. It's just going to get worse if men do not get involved in their children's lives. I mean, think about the generation that's coming up. It's statistically, it's the least church generation that is since, and I'm 53. So, you know, prior to I guess in the United States, the history of the United States, it's going to be the least churched.
I think, Jody, that plays into exactly kind of, you know, what we're trying to kind of really get at tonight. You know, we are seeing the younger generation abandoning their faith at levels unlike any previous generation. But what we also know is that when we as fathers and leaders of our households aren't leading spiritually, that when these young people leave the home and become adults of their own. At least this is what we're reading, and research is showing us that about 80% or so of these young adults that are maybe in a Christian environment, but they're not being led, they haven't been led by their father, that when they kind of start making those decisions on their own, that we're seeing about 80% of them will leave the faith.
Right.
But in a home that's, that's servant led by their father and showing the way to Jesus and pointing them that way and living that way, we see when kids are leaving the home and becoming young adults of their own, making decisions of their own, choosing faith for themselves, that about 80% are retaining their faith. And so if we're worried about like our young people abandoning the faith at record levels, we also have to connect the dots that it's all on us as fathers. Like if we're not leading the charge here, that's just going to continue to happen. So we've got to re-engage. We've got to, take that responsibility in that gauntlet.
100%. I love that. That's good. We do have to take that back. The one thing that I have noticed about those kids who are in the faith and that are faithful to God themselves are sold out. They're good, godly kids, and man, they are going to stand for the faith no matter what. And they're separating them. We've got quite a few teenagers in our church that, man, are just on fire. Like they're going to be the next missionaries and the preachers and the teachers, and man, I'm so excited about them. And we just got to make sure that the fathers continue to pour into them and to protect them. So they do get at that age of, late teens, early 20s, that they're still walking with God. Because statistically speaking, if they can do that and they get past that 18 to 25 range, most of them will continue to walk with God. That's good stuff. I like that. So we know your mission, we know your passion. So explain to us what Dad Camp is. Jason, we'll start with what is Dad Camp?
So, I'll take you back to where we all started. I'll try to go quick, but
Take your time. You're good.
I was a discipleship pastor, part of a medium-sized church here in Kokomo, Indiana. I went actually from marketplace to ministry, felt a calling, however we want to say it, just a burning to just be in a kingdom-minded, purpose-filled kind of ministry of some kind for about 7-8 years of my life, and just didn't know what box I could put myself in. I grew up in a pretty traditional kind of church where, you have your lead pastor, your music guy, your youth person, your children's person. I just never had a box to fit myself in. And so I just kind of said, well, none of those things are me. So I guess I'm never going to be in ministry. So I'll go find something else. And so I went, I got my education in physical therapy. I practiced physical therapy for about 7 years. And then God just kind of opened that door for me, and got invited to join a team here in Indiana to join, become a discipleship pastor for that church. And so early on in that development of my life, I just realized that my passion, I guess that's the right word. Just I just wanted my focus to be on the discipling of men. It's just seeing the impact and the non-impact that a faith-filled father and a non-engaged father was having on their family, having on the impact and the health of a local church. I just was like, we got to get the men. And if we don't, we're just not going to grow the kingdom the way, that God is calling us to get after that. And so that struggle then of how do we reach them? I saw over the years, the classic men's ministries come and go and get some ramp up with some energy and then quickly just kind of die out, and just nothing was sustainable. Nothing was keeping guys engaged. Right. And so that was just kind of burning in me. And we had a piece of property that we weren't really using. It was a beautiful 60-acre piece of property that the church owned at the time. And our lead pastor came to me and just said, "Hey, I know we got to utilize this property, and I just feel like God might do something through you in terms of developing some type of family ministry." And so that began some thinking and some prayer and just some, what do we do? And through a couple of different experiences that I had, with my kids at some different non-church related parachurch kind of ministry experiences I had. I felt like just God birthed an idea in us, and it was, hey, you can reach. We've never met a man that looked us in the eye and said, I want to be a bad dad to my kids. You kind of touched on that earlier, Jody. Like, maybe dads aren't maybe checked into their marriage, but they seem to always kind of want to. They're not bad at like checking in with their kids. And we were like, we've never met a guy that said, no, even if it was a guy that I talked to in a prison while I'm doing some ministry in a prison, he wouldn't look at me and say, I want to be a bad dad to my kids. Yeah, the guys that are the 1 out of 10 dad to the 10 out of 10 dad, it's inside of us. We all want to be a good father. And so we thought we can maybe reach a man for Christ through his child. And so let's create an experience for him to have with his child. And that began Dad Camp in 2006. And so it was just a handful of dads in our community. We didn't have any vision for it. We didn't have any expectation beyond just a good experience for the guys that were part of our local church. But over the course of the last 16 years, we've just seen this rapid trajectory of growth, and dads keep coming back. They keep inviting their friends, whether they're Christian men, whether they're men that would not ascribe to any faith whatsoever, but they come back, and we just see God working. And so what that's led to is where we're at this year. We're going to be doing over 60 dad camps in 12 countries, across 5 states. And it's just kind of, we just see God just using this environment to transform the hearts of men, and they get to do it alongside of their kids. And so that's kind of what we do. We're an events-based ministry. We try to stay in that lane. There's so many other great ministries and in other lanes. And so we feel like that's the lane God's given us to run. And so that's what we do. And we've created a different, we've got a weekend event, we've got a day event, we've got an evening event that we've got, depending on the context, the culture, the country. We've kind of got different models of dad camp that we create, but it's all about kids joining their dads and us pouring into fathers. And that's a little bit of the story.
That is awesome. I go to a family camp up in Buchanan, Michigan, called Life Action Family Camp. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but we've gone for 16 years, and it's like Vacation Bible School for adults. Like we go and just have a great time with the kids and stuff. So I'm really excited. We're actually leaving in a couple of weeks for our yearly excursion. Awesome. So I really love those kind of things. So Matt, you got involved about 4 years ago. Tell me about how and what drove you to coming on board and getting a part of this ministry.
Yeah. I was a part of a church that was partnering with a couple of ministries. Dad Camp was one of them, and something called Fight Club was another one. And I don't even remember who actually invited me, even to this day, but somebody told me how great Dad Camp is. Right. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go with my son and check out this ministry. I think he was about 5 or 6 years old at the time. And we went to the location where it was birthed. We call that the Valley, there in Kokomo, Indiana, and just had an amazing time, but also felt like it filled my fatherhood tank up. I could really see that this ministry was providing a time for me to connect with my son and have a great time. But the heart of it was to strengthen fathers. And so I just came away from that weekend with a great experience, with my son coming away from that 5, 6 years old saying, Dad, we got to do this every year through my senior year in high school.
Oh, wow.
And so I think it was the next year that I went back. Jason's programming, he did a great job of, there's a good mix of sometimes you're with your child and doing some things, and then sometimes your child is off having some fun with some of the ministry partners while you are being poured into, while you are learning, getting some teaching. So we had a Saturday night event where it was just us dads in a room, and we were doing an exercise where we were putting down some pros and cons, basically. What are some good things that you got from your dad that you would want to carry with you and pass on to your children? And then what are some things maybe that you maybe got from your dad or saw from your dad that aren't so good, that you want to make sure that you don't internalize those things and pass those on?
That's
And,
strong.
That's good.
guys are sharing and giving some great pros and cons there. And I just raised my hand, man. I felt the Holy Spirit prompt me to share. And I just said, this is a tough exercise for me because I don't have anything on either column. And the room went kind of silent. And I said, my parents divorced when I was 4 years old. And my dad moved out of the home, and then within 3 years moved across the country. So I don't feel like I got anything from him, either good or bad. I would see him for, a weekend or so here or there. I'd spend a week with him every summer. But I just didn't really remember getting much deposited into me from him. And later on that evening, we have these cabins there at the valley, and we've got these fire pits out there. It's a great place where guys can just connect and sit in the evening around a campfire and talk. And Jason came up to the campfire that I was at and just sat down, and he and I sort of struck up a conversation. And that's really where God birthed our friendship. We saw the passion for men in each other. But he said he just saw something that night. He just said, when you spoke, the whole room got quiet. Everybody was locked in on what you were saying. And I didn't see it that way. I didn't notice it that way. But it just sort of, I think, planted a seed in him. Like, some way, I think this guy should be a part of our ministry. And so I think it was later that year that he invited me to be on the board. I prayed about it, asked God about it. It perfectly aligned with the passion that God's planted in me for reaching men. And so I joined the board. And over the next 2 or 3 years, I've just gotten more and more involved with teaching. Been on some international ministry trips now. I've been to Kenya, Jamaica, Ukraine. Those were great opportunities to travel and see that there's something that bonds men's hearts all over the globe. We can speak different languages. We can have different socioeconomic backgrounds. We can live in different countries. We can have different colors of skin, different cultures. But literally every dad that I have met on the planet, God has planted something in that man's heart that he wants to be a good dad. Yes. And if we have nothing else in common, that bonds us. And so dad camp for me also sort of got some of these things out where I was having some issues with my dad. And God really smacked me around a little bit and said, hey, you got to get forgiveness in your heart for your dad. And I reached out to him, and it's a story that almost brings tears to my eyes, but through that.
Tell us, let's hear it.
Well, it's funny.
If you can tell it without crying.
Yeah. We at that point, we'll go through a lot of stuff. We've had a lot of issues, but at that point we hadn't talked for almost 3 years.
Oh, wow.
No communication whatsoever. He's on the West Coast. I'm living in the Midwest. And I hear a message at church about forgiveness, and the pastor, it's one of those things where you feel like there's a spotlight on you and the pastor's looking right at you.
You're the only one in the audience.
You're the only one there.
He's talking right to me.
Yeah, why is he singling me out? There's 700 people in here. And
what a jerk.
So he says, I know that you have someone in mind after I've delivered this message that you need to forgive. And I encourage you to do it the way God does it. Number one, do it right now, as soon as you can. And number two, do it the way God does. Toss whatever it is as far as the east is from the west. Put it in the sea of forgetfulness. You have to really give forgiveness to this person. So, of course, my dad comes on my heart immediately. This is a Sunday. By Tuesday, I'm obedient. And I call and leave him a message. And my message is so long that his voicemail beeps and cuts me off. So I think that didn't go well.
If you're satisfied with your message, please press 1.
Right. This is too long.
To re-record. No.
So I figure I'm not going to hear back from him. I get a call back from him. Literally, I'm on my way home from work, and in the evening, I get a call back from him as soon as I get home. And we talked for about 90 minutes. He's not a Christ follower at the time. And I'm sure some of the things I said didn't make a lot of sense to him, but it was essentially, I forgive you, whatever's going on in our relationship. I just want to start fresh and new. And
praise God.
if you're willing to do that with me, let's just start that tonight. And so I said a prayer with him. We had a great conversation. And really over the next couple of years, I just lived my faith out in front of him and spoke very freely about it. But he never seemed interested in it being for him. And another interesting thing about that story, he had a situation while we were not talking where he almost died. And I remember I'd convinced myself, what if he dies while we're sort of, estranged and not talking to each other? It really wouldn't matter to me. He doesn't mean anything in my life. He hasn't been there. We haven't had a relationship. And when I found that out in that first conversation with him again, I cried because I thought, if I would have lost him during that time, how much regret would I live with? I never would have had the opportunity to forgive him.
Right.
And I fell to my knees literally after that conversation and was thanking God that he didn't have it play out that way, that I did have that opportunity. And so fast forwarding through some other stuff, my dad gets sick again. I fly out to see him, and the Holy Spirit is just saying, you have to explicitly explain the gospel to your dad.
Oh, that's awesome.
You've lived it out in front of him and he's seen your faith, but you haven't explicitly explained it. And so I'm praying all the way on the plane out there, 4 hours straight, praying for this battle, open his eyes, whatever's blinding him, let his ears be able to hear this message. Get out there, share it with him in the hospital for about an hour, answer a lot of questions for him. And just praise God, man. On September 18th, 2018, he gave his life to Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's awesome. Praise God.
Yeah, a lot of that was birthed through some things that I saw, and God started dealing with my heart in dad camp. So some of the seeds that we're planting in these men's hearts, we may never see those get watered. We may not see them grow or the harvest while we're here on earth. But I think about my story and think about what I may be giving to a man on a weekend through what God's telling me to say and do, and how that may play out in his life, those that are around him, his wife, his children, his family, his sphere of influence. Yeah, man, I love dad camp and what we do, and just trying to convince men to get there. I want them to experience it. It's almost like you can't put into words what it's like to be at a dad camp. You have to actually come experience it.
Amen. Yeah, exactly. I always say unforgiveness is like drinking acid and hoping the other person dies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, all you're doing is killing yourself, and that unforgiveness is really for you.
That's right.
Even though you're forgiving them, but it's for you to heal and for you to trust in God that he knows best in those situations. And he did know best. That's the great thing about it, because what it ended up doing was, in my mind, I'm thinking, man, it took the walls down from your dad, and allowed his heart to be pierced as you're speaking to him and giving him, encouragement and saying, I forgive you. And, sometimes, depending, especially if they're not involved in your life, a lot of times they really don't think that they did anything wrong other than just not being there, which they don't understand that's just as bad as you backhanding them or, pushing them down the steps or whatever. But that unforgiveness, when you give that is for both of you guys, and you see where it led for him to give his life to the Lord. And that is amazing. Praise God.
Yeah, Joey, that's a great point. Like, when I got done with that conversation, I felt like a weight had been lifted that I didn't even know I was carrying. Such a bitter root had taken hold in my heart. It's like if you have cancer wrapping around you, but you're just not aware of it until it's taken away and you realize, wow, I was really sick with unforgiveness and didn't even realize it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great point.
That's good.
So that story kind of raises some questions. Actually, when Pastor Jody said, hey, you were having on dad camp, my immediate thought was like, oh, okay, cool. Orphan kids, are going to hang out with dads they don't have. And then you tell this story. It's an interesting perspective of, hey, I'm a dad now. I didn't have a relationship with my father, and or we have a generation of children, a lot of which are being either separately parented or fatherless or just father abandonment.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are other ministries that tap into this. Has there ever been conversations with you guys of how to, someone who's, I'm in my dad prime, but I have no kids, what does that look like? I steal my nephews. That's how I get my dad time. I steal them as much as I can. And watching my brother father is actually one of the most rewarding things for me to do. And then he's done such a good job with them anyway. But have you guys talked about what that looks like with the future of dad camp? Or is that, just a monkey wrench I'm throwing in the, I'm just curious, because that was my original thought.
No, that's a great question. And we've wrestled with that actually quite a bit. There's the lane that we have felt like God say, stay in this lane. And that's, that is, we want to help change that narrative. And the reason and the way that we help change that narrative is by building stronger fathers who build stronger families, so that the next generation, as they raise up and start having families of their own, that we're seeing less fatherlessness. We're seeing more engaged dads. We're seeing this narrative change that we find our country in right now. So that's kind of, we felt like stay there, stay focused.
Yeah. And
However,
that's more than an acceptable answer. I was just curious, and we've actually had people on this podcast before that are tackling the orphan problem here in America. So God's pulling on people's hearts in different
ways. Sure.
We don't know why he's called us to the areas that he calls us into, and we don't always get answers. That was just a line of curiosity for me. So
I'll add to that for Goza, though, that we have had a nonprofit here in our local community here in Central Indiana that works with fatherless kids, with at-risk kids, and they provide mentors for these kids that build into them. Once or twice a week, they go to their schools, they take them out, and they just hang out with them. They love on them. And what we did one year was we created a dad camp experience for these mentors to bring these kids.
Awesome.
And so these mentors could have a space and an environment to actually build relationship with them, that we could remind these mentors of how much they matter, that they're standing in the gap for these kids who don't have a dad that's loving on them, the way that they should be. And so we have definitely, done some of that. We've invited, we always say, hey, if we get a lot of moms that reach out to us and say, well, my husband isn't involved in our child's life, and he's not, but he has an uncle, or he has a grandfather, or we have a friend. Can he bring my son or daughter to dad camp? And we're like, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good.
That's awesome.
So those are some of the different ways, though, that we're trying to engage that. And then even when we go internationally, what we find, Jody, you mentioned Haiti. Haiti is kind of near and dear to my heart. It's the first kind of international experience that I had several years ago, and absolutely fell in love with that country and those people, and have so many good friends there. But, we've worked at orphanages there, doing dad camp. And so what does that look like? And so we try to provide, maybe if dad's not there, let's provide a loving male role model in that child's life, and build into them that way. So
that's awesome.
The biggest issue with trying to train people on how to be parents is, man, when the child comes, it blows everything out of the water that you already knew, or thought you knew. And every kid that you have upon that, they are all different. You're retraining yourself more than anything. I think for Goza, a good answer would be learning to be a godly man now, while learning what your foundation is built on. It's Jesus Christ. If you can do that, then leading kids to God, raising them, is a lot easier for sure.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, definitely.
that's that would be my
Yes, sir.
my assessment there to do that. So, well, that's awesome, guys. Great stories, Matt. I love restoration stories. I love healing stories. I love forgiveness stories. And it sounds like that's really what Dad Camp is all about. So, tell me how, like for an example, do you guys do a week one or just a weekend?
So the longest model of dad camp that we have, the way we traditionally started with, dads will show up with their kids on a Friday night, 6-7 o'clock, and we'll get things rolling. And then that event will run until about Sunday at noon.
Okay.
And so that's the typical model. But then when we started to, the doors started to open around the world, and we started to go into places like Haiti or places like Uganda or the Democratic Republic of Congo. And what we found there is, for one, they don't have camps like we have in America with cabins and sleeping facilities. They don't have the financial means to afford a full weekend that's, where you've got to pay to come to an experience like that. And so we quickly discovered if we've got to kind of reinvent ourselves a little bit. And so we created a model where a dad could show up with their son or daughter, in the morning, and we're done by 4 or 5 o'clock. And so they don't have to think about, where do I stay tonight? I can get home, I can come. And then we've even, we found in Guatemala when we went that there, it was difficult to get a dad at any point during the day because of just, they're always working. They're always in the fields. They're always, and so how can we still reach them without them having to miss a day's work and losing a day's pay, which they can't afford to do? So we created an evening model, or a 3 to 4 hour version. And we were just astonished and amazed to see how God said, you can create any model that you want, and I'm going to show up. Because when dads are present and they're engaging with their kids, it's like it puts a smile on his face, and he's like, and I'm going to work in the heart of that father. And I don't, and it's going to be just as powerful in 3 hours as it is. Because a lot of our guys here, like, how can those guys in those other countries get the same experience when they only come for 3 or 4 hours that we get in a weekend? And we're like, it doesn't make sense. But when you see it, and that's their only context for that, for dad camp, is that God takes it and shows up. And so we've got, we like dads and daughter, we've got dads and sons. So we've got father-son events. We have father-daughter events. We've got,
that was actually my next question.
We've got,
do you do them together? They're separate occasions. I'm sure the housing is probably easier if they're separate.
So father-son, we typically do separate, and the elementary age group, we'll do a father-son weekend. We'll do father-daughter weekends. When we get to middle school, actually what we found is that it's a lot of fun to blend sons and daughters in that older age group. And so we make our middle school dad camps 6th through 8th grade, where dad can bring his son or a daughter. And then at the high school level too, they're co-ed events. So if you have a school age child, you can come to dad camp from 1st grade to 12th grade. And we've got now that we're in our 17th year, we've had a good handful of dads that have come every single year. They've never missed a year of dad camp with their kids, and just the impact that's had. Because the content's different every year. It's not like you come to dad camp and you're like, oh, I did that already. It's, I'm just going to go back and do the same thing. We change content every year. We change the experience every year. And so every year dads come back, they know that they're going to get a new deposit kind of into their heart as a father. So we've tried to create
Can you do, like, let's say multiple kids, like let's say a dad has 3 kids. Can all of them come at once? And
they can. Together? It gets, we try to remind dads. We try to remind dads that this event, again, is for them, not for their kids. Yeah. Even though their kids have, the kids will say, hey, this is the best weekend of my year. But we're focused. It's called dad camp for a reason. We're focusing ourselves on dad. So when they bring 3 kids, that dad needs to remember, like, okay, I'm going to be kind of corralling 3.
That's mom camp at that point, and she's home watching
not just one. And he's less able to focus on himself because he's got 3 to worry about, not just the one. And so, and then we try to create a unique blessing experience in every dad camp, where a father just the biblical model of dads giving identity into their children and pouring a blessing into their kids. And so we, so if you have 3 kids to bless versus 1, we love it when a dad will bring 1 so that he can just focus on that one son or 1 daughter. And then next year, if he comes, when he comes back, bring a different son or daughter.
That's cool.
Right.
But you can, if you absolutely want to bring 2 or 3, you can, you can do that.
I love that blessing. That's one thing that we don't do with our children. You look back at the Jewish model of raising children, at the age of 13, they have, the bar mitzvah, and that's a coming of age tradition that they've had for centuries. And we don't have anything like that in the United States.
It is
lost. And that blessing or, coming of light or coming of age or whatever that is. Last year was my last year, but I get altitude sickness, but we climb one of the 14ers in Colorado.
Which one?
And, it's Mount Evans.
Okay. Have you just done Mount Evans or have you done others?
No, there's another one, but I can't think. There's 2 of them that we do. We alternate each year. Okay. I can't think of the other one.
I've done about 6 myself. So
one of them's it's the Little Chicago Lake. We camp. I don't know. I think that's Mount Evans. And we camp right above the lake, and it's at 11,700 feet, is where we camp. But, every year I've gotten altitude sickness, and last year I was sick for 4 days while we were there. So I'm pretty much done.
I feel you, brother. I get the same thing.
He's off the Man Up show.
Yeah,
I guess I'm off too then.
There's a lot of things that I can do with that one about kill me last. I mean, I was at the 4th day and I was like, call a helicopter. There's no way I'm walking. Luckily, we take a bunch of young guys up there. Yeah, we we call them Sherpas. We had a bunch of young guys, and we just gave them all my stuff, and I hobbled down. But every year, it's a good buddy of mine. His name is Jeff Voth from Cave Time Men's Ministry. He's the one who set this up and allowed me and my son to go. So I've taken both of my sons. I've got a 12-year-old twin. He's a boy-girl twin, and then my 20-year-old, he just turned 20, and taken them up there. And we at the end of the camp, what we do is we do an affirmation circle. And it's kind of like what you're talking about, this blessing thing. And I'm telling you what, my sons and I have connected more in that 15-minute affirmation, just pouring into them. And what's cool, though, is what we do is we do a circle. Whoever's turn it is, they close their eyes and they say 3 people, affirm, this person for the week or whatever. And people just raise their hands up real quick. And it is just such a great thing to do. And for me to do that for my sons, and even to hear my sons do the same thing to me, like, we fought all the way from St. Louis to Colorado, but when we get up on that mountain and it's like, oh, I love you, and I want to hug you.
Such a good dad.
It's such a good dad. Yeah, exactly. I'm a great dad, and then we fight all the way back home.
Well, he told me not to tell you this, but Vol's been paying him.
Yeah, exactly.
He gives them 20 minutes before they do the affirmations.
But I love the idea of the blessing, because one of the things that I wish, and maybe I'm convicting myself here too, is to teach the men how to pray blessings over their children, and how to pray for their future, and how to pray for their future spouses, and bless them with godliness, and break that generational curse to where they don't have to worry about the stuff that we have, because we're going to be the wall. We're going to stop. Yes. It's going to stop here. And from here on out, we're praying blessings over you. And I love that idea. I love that. That's
Jody, a great idea. That story that you have from the hike, the Affirmation Circle, and your boys in turn blessing you, that's as dad camp has grown and we get into the high school kind of format of dad camp, that's kind of what we start to do, a 2-way blessing, where not only do we bless our 16, 17 and 18-year-olds, but we allow those 16, 17, 8-year-olds to in turn pour into us. And I'll tell you, the last couple of years with my son, same as you just said, when he was presenting me with some words of affirmation, not a dry eye, right? Like some of the
not at all.
most affirming things. And one of the things that I just got to do that was maybe one of the most special things that I've ever got to do as a dad was my son just got married last month, and they gave me the privilege of officiating their wedding. And I surprised him by, it's just been a part of our family culture and affirmation. And so I said, someday when he gets married, if I get the honor of being a part of his wedding in some way, I'm going to bless him in his wedding. And so I did an affirmation over him during the wedding ceremony.
That's awesome.
And I had bought a spear in Kenya, a Maasai spear. There's the Maasai tribe, the nomadic tribe. They're known for, their spears. And the history there, the tradition is that a young man doesn't get his spear until he kills a lion with his bare hands. Yeah. And that kind of earns him the right to carry a spear and be a warrior. And I bought an authentic Maasai spear in Kenya that the way they had built it, it broke down into 3 pieces. And so I was able to put it in my luggage. And so I brought it back and I had it hidden on the stage. And then during the wedding, I had the best man go get the spear. And then I just poured into him as to the warrior now that he was called to be for his new bride, the warrior that he was called to be for his future family. And that I told him he had what it takes, and that, that God was going to now give him that stewardship and the responsibility. And anyways, one of the coolest, special, most powerful moments that's
amazing.
I ever got to have as a dad. And I would encourage every father out there listening to do that kind of stuff with his kids.
One of my favorite authors, John Eldridge. I think there's a book where he talks about this, Killing Lions. He wrote it with his son, Sam. It's just legit.
Yeah. Your son would be able to walk through a brick wall, when you do that to your kids. Because, as you're raising your kids, unfortunately, there's also the discipline part that comes along with raising your kids. And sometimes that's all they remember, as they get older. But, and again, that's not all they remember, but if we were to affirm and teach and train more than we disciplined, we would have to discipline a lot less for most cases. Again, I've got 4 kids. I've got a 21-year-old daughter, a 20-year-old son, and twin 12-year-olds, boy, girl. And they're all different. You raise them in a different way. Obviously, biblically, it's the same, but relationally, it's completely different. I've got 2 sons who need a lot of affirmation and a lot of patting on the back. I've got 2 daughters who could, they could kill a lion with both of their bare hands. They're kind of, not that my boys aren't tough, but my girls are pretty tough. And, you love them a different way. And raising kids, again, there's no book, there's no, training manual. Sometimes you just have to, kind of jump in and figure out how you're going to swim once you have kids. But again, if you stand on the Word of God, you're going to be blessed by doing that. It's not going to be easy. Yes, there's not a lot of promises by, other than you will suffer. There's going to be some things that are going to go on. You do have a good principle that if you train them up in the way that they go, that they will not depart, but that's not a promise. But you'll have a better likelihood of them walking with God if you train them that way, for sure. So
absolutely.
That's
Jody,
good stuff.
That you brought up that's important is what they remember. The blessing piece that we do in dad camp is an actual physical piece.
Oh, good.
So we have the opportunity to write some things down. And what tells me and what we see how important this is. So, for example, my sons have all of their blessing pieces from the years that we've gone on display in their room. And that's not something I told them to do. I don't tell them how to decorate their room. But my oldest, my 18-year-old, he's kept those blessing pieces on his bedside dresser and on his desk where he does his homework. And these are saying things that I've spoken to him, but written down that I believe in him. You're intelligent, you're powerful, you're capable, you're saved, you're God's son. And he's chosen to put one of the blessing pieces is actually on his bathroom counter, on the vanity. And so these are things that he wants to see every day. And so, like you said, we're also called to discipline. And so
Right.
they know that we're not always going to agree on things. We're not always going to be their best friend. Sometimes we're going to have to be their disciplinarian.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that both he and my 11-year-old, now 11-year-old, have these things up in their rooms that this is reminding them of what dad says about them and what God says about them.
Praise God.
I know
And-
Cole, who just got married, Jason's son, he took his to college. He had them prominently displayed. I mean, he's only got a few things. It's a dorm room. You can't really put a lot of stuff out, but that's what he chose. We have a story of one young lady who was a triangular block, and it had 3 things that her dad believed about her and that he said about her. And every morning when she got up, she would turn the block 1 turn, turn it again 1 turn, and then turn it again 1 turn. We have an international story where a kid went to bed with his. He got it from his dad that night, and his dad found him clutching it in bed, like almost like a security blanket when he woke up in the morning.
Wow.
He's so excited to show his siblings. So yeah, we're talking about the power of that blessing. And it really, we try to coach the men, seize the moment, man, really get on their level, look them in the eye, let them know how important this moment is, what they mean to you. And don't be afraid to show emotion. Don't be afraid to cry if that's what it brings out of you. Show them how much you really love them, care about them, and what you believe about them.
I'm
Praise
getting a lot of, and maybe it's just because I've read a lot of his stuff, a lot of Eldridge vibes from what you guys are talking about.
There's some Eldridge vibes you're feeling.
Oh man,
We
like
love Eldridge.
fathered by God really
Yep.
helped me so much with the gaps in my own relationship with my father, which is really interesting. That book helped me in this, and I don't think I've told this story. But my mother has Alzheimer's, and so she's been in a home for a very long time, and I don't have much of a relationship with her because there's really not much of a relationship to be had. But just in the way that, the gaps that we have because our fathers didn't do what you're talking about. They didn't speak those things into us and bless us with those things. We have these gaps and these holes. In the same fashion, I had gaps and holes from a motherly figure. And God, in the same way, has brought women into my life, obviously older women, not in my dating pool, that have spoken into my life and filled a lot of those gaps. And again, with the father gaps, those blessings, they're clutching them because they are precious. They are, they're in, I guess this would be a Eldridgeism. They're prevented wounds.
Mhm.
It's a potential wound that you have avoided. Wound avoided. This is solid stuff, man. This is
We say a lot for Goza, and I can really understand with what you're going through with your mother. My mother also has Alzheimer's, is in a home, and so I totally understand what that's like. And with Eldridge, they made a little miniature book, or Eldridge did, out of his book Wild at Heart and Fathered by God. They made a miniature book called You Have What It Takes. It's just a real miniature booklet. They took kind of the best of the best from those books and kind of put it into a read that you could read in probably 15 minutes. But we took that saying back in 2006, you have what it takes, and we made it our mantra, that we want Dad Camp to be a place for dads to hear that they have what it takes to be the father that God has called them to be. And we want them to impart that message into their kids, that they have what it takes to be whoever and God has called them to be. And it's become this mantra. It's on the back of our shirts. It's on the, on our banners that we sign. But that's just kind of been a message that has kind of passed the test of time for us, that just has never gone away. Amongst all the themes that we've had, that's been the one that's kind of been an anchor for us. But all from Mr. Eldridge. Yes, he's been a huge. We've learned so much from him and really appreciate his ministry.
That's not a bad place to be pulling from.
I read his first book, man. I saw a picture of him, and I was like, "That's not the same guy." Like, there's no way that's the guy who wrote this book.
I have to digress. I'm a big Eldridge fan too. I want to hear what every guy's favorite Eldridge book is.
Mine's Wild at Heart, man. Still,
Yeah, I got to go back with Jody to the same Wild at Heart. Would have to be
You know, I'm Waking the Dead.
Yeah,
Waking the Dead is just
and Matt,
coming in
you're
hot.
Waking the Dead.
So interesting you said that, because I just started last week, and then we're meeting at my home here Thursday. A group of 4 of us guys are just starting that book and that workbbook together.
That one's challenging. It is. It makes you, and he does a really good job of saying where he's not trying to hyper focus or hyper spiritualize our realm, but the reality is that everything is spiritual warfare. When those wounds that you are avoiding with this next generation, that's the battlefield. My weaknesses as a man are from wounds like that. If you're following the Eldridge progression of how a man, raises up, I was in the cowboy stage for too long, and I have spurts of it now. I'm a 37-year-old single man, and there's no one stopping me from disappearing for a couple of weeks. I just did it. I just took 2 months off of work, and not super responsible. And so there's still spurts of, the cowboy phase that veer back up because of those empty gaps, because of those holes. Waking the Dead changed my perspective on a lot of how my life is going. And I probably should reread that book, because there's some amazing stuff in there. It's all coming back to me right now that just needs to be recapped. It's just a good one.
Yeah.
I know Matt asked us the question. I know he hasn't said it yet, but I know he's been really into Beautiful Outlaw by Eldridge recently. And, I know earlier Matt mentioned, Jesus was the manliest man, ever. And that book is a great read too, on just understanding and seeing the personality of Jesus, and kind of just not reading the scripture so two-dimensionally like we tend to read it, and just trying to see Jesus in a three-dimensional way and understanding his personality. So that's another really good one too.
Right. That's good. Yeah. He made an impact on, that was one, I think pretty close to the first book when not too long after I gave my life to the Lord in 2003 that I read. That's like 2006 or 7, I think, when I read that. It was a really eye-opening book. But yeah, then I saw him and I was like, golly, that just, I was thinking of a big old mountain man,
Very unassuming in real life. Yeah. He doesn't look like it. No, Wild at Heart is actually how I started my faith journey. So I grew up in church, and I didn't give my life to Christ till I was like 27. I went, I was a PK, but I went the other way pretty hard. I read Not a Fan, and that switched it up for me from Kyle Idleman. My first...
Yeah, that was a good one.
My first year or 2 years of following Christ, Wild at Heart was like my mantra. Like I didn't, my brother and even my boss at the time, shout out to Coach Zaleski, he was like trying to reel me in a little bit. He's like, you're getting too weird, bro. I wasn't talking to women at all. And I was working as a coach at Cal Baptist, and we had to work with women coaches, and literally we'd be standing there talking, and a woman would walk up, and I literally would like peace out. And he's like, why do you keep doing that? And I'm like, dude, I'm separating myself from what I used to be to what I'm going to be now. Like what he's trying to make me. And I'm not saying you got to, I got weird. Eldridge got into me, dude. I was like, well, it's hard. Going cold turkey. We're going to change my life around. But yeah, he's incredibly influential, but does not look like he writes,
right.
And that goes to a testament of what we've done with what a real man is, and what that really looks like. We've put a little Hollywood spin on what they're supposed to look like, and chewing. How'd you put it earlier? Chewing bullets.
Yeah, chewing on bullets, bending iron, and biting bullets. My buddy Jeff Voth, who's Cave Time Men's Ministry, he went out to his Eldridge's conference. The one that's on lottery. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's
boot camp.
Yeah, the boot camp. So he said, man, his kids are just, it's a good example of how to raise godly kids. That's awesome. So tell me about, so if I were to come to dad camp, let's say I come in on Friday night, what would I expect?
Well, first of all, Jody, you need to come to dad camp because I heard you have two 12-year-olds,
I do.
and we have dad camp at Fort Bluff camp in Tennessee on Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
And I think you should be there. So we can talk about that after the podcast at some point.
Perfect.
But what would you expect? Friday night, we want every dad that's kind of like walking in there, like, what did I sign up for? What am I coming to? Yeah, I'm with my son or my daughter, but what am I actually, we want to create an environment Friday night where within an hour or two of everything getting started, you are like, I am like having a blast, and I am so glad that I am here. This is going to be a great weekend. And so our goal Friday night is just, we want to introduce guys to the why. Like, here's why we're here, guys. This is called dad camp for a reason, but here's why it's called dad camp. But then we're going to go and we're going to play hard. We're going to, like, with the kids, and we're going to create, an environment where, by Friday night, you're ready to hit the pillow, but you're excited about what's coming Saturday. So that's kind of Friday night. Saturday is, traditionally Friday morning or Saturday morning. We love to give dads some quiet time. We love to kind of introduce them to something, set them out to just spend some alone time, navigating maybe through the material that we've presented for the weekend a little bit, just going on a walk, spending some time. And while they're doing that, the kids, we create, a lot of fun for them. So no worried about the kids. We're taking good care of them. And then what we do is then we intentionally want to bring you back so we want to give dads an hour to themselves. And then we want to give you an hour just with your kids that you came, like we're going to, hey, for the next hour before lunch, it's just you and your son, just you and your daughter. And here's some coaching on maybe having some conversations with them. But we ultimately just want you to just invest into them for an hour. Don't hang out with other dads. Don't hang out with other kids, just the two of you. And so that's kind of a Saturday morning feel. Saturday afternoon is just, it's going to kind of weave into what that camp, that venue that you're going to be at. What are the highlights of that camp in terms of what it offers in terms of activities and adventures and that kind of thing. And we just want to have Saturday afternoon a time where we just kind of lean into what that camp offers and create, again, just a bunch of free time for you to just build memories with your kids. And then Saturday night, you're kind of wore out. Kids are still probably fired up, but you're probably a little bit on the end of your energy tank. And so Saturday night, we just really want to create an environment for dads to just, a lot of times we want to hear a testimony from a dad that's just like us, that's just going to share his story. I'll bring up, like Matt was sharing, a little bit of his story earlier. Well, that year that he led his dad to Christ was the same year that he was actually our Saturday night featured testimony speaker. And so at the beginning of that run, I'll never forget this, at the beginning of that season, when he would share his story, he would end it with, well, this part of the story is still unfinished because my father hasn't found Jesus yet. And that's still my prayer. And that's still my hope. And, but that part of the story isn't finished. And that's kind of how it would end. Well, by the end of our fall run, when he was doing that same talk, he had a different ending, which was so incredible. He could share with those dads. And now the end of that story is my dad knows the Lord and he made that decision. So, but that's Saturday night. We don't want to inspire guys by just having a real, authentic, humble environment where a dad just shares a story, and then we can create some time to just talk about that a little bit, reflect on that a little bit, while the kids, again, are just out having some fun. Then we're going to kind of lead you towards that blessing and what that's going to look like and how to prepare yourself to bless your kids. And that might come Saturday night, that might come Sunday morning, but we've got a game. It's called Guerrilla Wars. I won't go any further than that because it's what's made us famous. And so that's a part of your evening kind of wind down. And then Sunday morning is we really try to slow down a little bit. Sunday morning, it becomes for us, especially as when we're weekend after weekend after weekend doing these events, Sunday morning becomes church for us. And so we want to create a real worshipful kind of environment. And then just a final kind of challenge to the dads that they can kind of be focused on and inspired by, and probably that blessing time will come in there before we kind of wind down and dismiss you and head, most of the dads are on their way by noon and home by mid-afternoon. So that's kind of what a weekend looks like.
Praise God. That is awesome. So you said each year that you have new content that you're presenting. Is it, so do you theme it for the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We don't, so what I do every year is, I'll read 2 or 3 books that I haven't read about fatherhood and just kind of lean into where I feel like God's kind of leading towards, like this would be great for next year. And so we'll usually theme it around a book.
Okay.
So we'll choose a book. We'll provide that book. The dads will usually all get a book that we'll never get through an entire book over, in a weekend. We're just going to get 101 level, but we'll pull elements out of a book, and then we'll hopefully give those guys a taste of that content enough that when they take that book home, they're going to really digest it and maybe form small groups out of it, discipleship groups that can continue to talk about it. But generally the content is themed around a book that we've chosen for the year. And then I will, and our team will create an experience around that particular book and that particular content. We'll kind of wrap our heads around that and create the experience. That's
cool. I need to get you my book, man.
That's right.
It's got a workbook and everything in it. It's pretty. I call it a 2-seater. You put it on the back of the toilet and you'll be done in a couple of seats. So,
well, that's what guys like.
That's what I know. I wrote it like I'd want to read it. Exactly. But it's an Amazon bestseller, but it goes through 7 areas in a Christian man's life where they, need to grow up. Personal relationship with Jesus, their marriage, fatherhood, serving in church, work, not raising holy hands on Sunday and then raising holy hell on Monday kind of mentality, accountability and discipleship. So
awesome.
Pretty simplistic, but man, that is exciting. I love what you guys have got going on. So Matt, when Jason, God leads him to, this theme and this, and he presents it to you guys and y'all start praying over it. What are you doing in this process when you get right before you get ready to start the camps?
Yeah, he's usually, writing the content and then sharing it with me. And we both agree it's kind of scary that our minds really work just about exactly the same. And so he'll sort of write something and I'll just go, yeah, he nailed it. Absolutely. I will then take it and just make it my own. I may make some tweaks here and there, make some changes. It just comes out more in my voice because obviously he and I have a different voice. Right. But we're really on the same page as far as the foundational content goes. And then making it personal. I think guys always connect when you can get up in front of them, be honest, be transparent, share some of your own struggles, pain, victories, joy, tears, any of those things in front of them. And just to piggyback a little bit on the weekend, one of the things I loved about my first weekend was I feel like a lot of us guys are we're in environments where we feel like we have to pose. I call it the poser stuff, the facade, the mask, where I've got to measure up to this next guy. I can't be too soft. I can't show any emotion. Who has the more expensive car, who went on the better vacation, who's got the more beautiful wife, it's always this competition. And I noticed that these dad camp guys, it was like all that could be stripped away for the weekend and you can just hang out and be for one another instead of being against one another. And so that's one of the things I really think guys enjoy about dad camp is if they're in those environments in their job, in their communities, whatever it might be, they can strip all that away for the weekend and just exhale and just really be themselves.
I always tell guys, as men, we're so simplistic. We have 5 major problems: sex, wives, money, kids, and work.
Yeah.
Like literally, but yet this one overarching problem surrounds it all, and it's called pride. We just won't talk about these issues. I mean, it's sex. It could be anything from you and your spouse are not, communicating correctly and you're not having intimate time together. It could be pornography. It could be a litany of other things. Wives. I mean, if you're married, you're going to have problems if you don't know how to deal with them. Kids compound those problems a lot of times. If you're working, you're away from home more than you are at home. And so you've got to figure out that balance and cut that pie as thin as you possibly can, that pie chart of a 24-hour day, to make sure that you're involved in your family's life. And then money. I mean, we all have to make money. We all spend more than we should and don't know how to budget, but yet guys are too prideful to even talk about those things. We just don't. We just don't talk about those
money's
things.
A tough issue. I have quite a few. I got in this habit of talking about money and asking my friends who are in my circle, like just asking them what they're making. This is shout out to Pete, my buddy Pete from high school. He did that to me when I was just out of grad school, and actually woke me up and found out I was not making very much money at all. I told him how much I was making. He's like, bro, you need to be making far more money than that. I was like, really? That's not enough? And he's like, no, that's not enough. You need to do better. But those are hard conversations. We're very, money's a touchy subject for us because I think we think it's a reflection on who we are, right? Because we don't see it as a tool. It's
all the above, though. I mean, you think about, you don't want to talk about a bad marriage because there's that facade. You got to make sure that you're the greatest husband and the greatest father, and you don't want to talk about those things. Same thing with money. I'll never forget. I've gone bankrupt twice. That's why I went into ministry, because I started 15 companies and lost them all. I know how to make money. I just didn't know how to keep it. But I tell people all the time, I've been rich and I've been poor, and both suck when all you do is think about it.
Yeah.
And Matt, I love what you're saying, that you've got these guys in a vulnerable position where they can be authentic with other guys that aren't necessarily in their sphere of influence, and that's sad. That it's good and bad. It's sad that they don't feel that they can talk to the guys that are in their sphere of influence, who are always going to be there, who, are in that. But it's also amazing that they can do that with each other, as a group of guys that are, once they get together and they realize, man, we're all struggling with the same stuff. It kind of opens those doors. But most men don't realize that until you do have that opportunity to be vulnerable and open. And I'll never forget one time I was really struggling financially, and I had just gotten saved. My thought was, when I got saved, God was going to double everything that I had because he got such a good deal with me. And it didn't really happen that way. Yeah, exactly. As a matter of fact, because what I was doing is I'd take my money and I'd put it on the pedestal, and then I'd put God on the pedestal, and I just kept going back and forth, and I couldn't figure out which one I wanted to serve the most. Well, he took care of that for me, so he took it all away. And I just remember finally at a point where, because my whole life had been spent building a kingdom to where people would look at me and go, holy cow, look at what that guy's done. People would stop and hit golf balls off my yard. It looked so good, and biggest house, nicest cars, all that kind of stuff. And then God took all that away. And I'll never forget confessing that to a group of guys, and you would almost thought the floodgates opened up, and everybody's like, oh man, I'm struggling here too, and this and that. And it was just that moment of authenticity, and guys need that, to be honest.
Yes.
We need that confession. We need that opportunity just to be honest, because we're really good liars. I mean, we even lie to ourselves. It's easy to look in the mirror, and I do this all the time. I look in the mirror and I still see the 18-year-old Jody, and he's nowhere near the size of the weight or anything else, and but I think we do that in the proverbial mirror too, that everything's okay, I can handle this myself, and it'll all be good. And man, that is not the case at all. So Matt, I love hearing that.
I think there's something about dad camp with that, about that's even different from like a men's retreat, a men's kind of event, right, that Matt is speaking to, because somehow in the room we try to just create that environment and to speak to, hey, this is just a group of dads, and we all just want to be the better dads to our kids. And so this is a safe place. we're all screwing up as we go along. Some of us are winning some battles, some of us are losing some battles, but we're all just dads. It levels the playing field. It's not about who we are as a man, what I'm accomplishing as a man. It's just, hey, how can we just talk about being dads? Because we all just love our kids. And there's something there that levels the playing field and creates what I think Matt was kind of speaking to, that he loved about, when he first started attending dad camp, that environment that created that I think is a little unique.
That's great. That is great.
So that happens on the Saturday. I was going to say on the Saturday campfires. By that night, guys are pretty open to being honest. And if there's, you might claim what you make, what kind of car you got, what kind of vacation going on in your house. I can't really call you on it. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But if you tell me you are absolutely knocking it out of the ballpark in fatherhood, I know you're lying.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
None of us are. We're all fumbling and struggling and just asking God to work through us and make sure we don't ruin our children. So it levels the playing field.
Amen. We do man up conferences, and we kind of have somewhat the same format. It is a men's retreat, but we kind of go through the 7 areas throughout the conference. Friday night is typically a come to Jesus meeting. Like the rest of the weekend means nothing if we don't get things right with you and Jesus, whether it's confession or salvation, just repentance or salvation. And we want them to know that they know. And then we work through the minutia of life, through those days. And that's typically Saturday night. We have camps, campfires set up all across the camp, and they can go to whichever one. And man, those moments, I hear some of the greatest testimonies of those, because usually it's Friday night, everybody's excited, they stay up late, and then we don't play, so to speak, at our conferences, because if I can get the guys away from a weekend, they can go hunting or skeet shooting or paintballing or they'll always choose that. But if I can get them away, we literally start at 7 o'clock in the morning. We don't stop till 9 o'clock at night. It's just, I've got them, and by that night they're worn out. They're ready to talk, and man, they're confessing, and it's just such a great deal. I love that you guys do that too. That those moments of those campfires are a lot of special moments.
Now, I will say this: he said we don't play. Jody did manage to fit in some cornhole.
We did,
in which he cheated his way to a victory.
Yeah. Yeah, we had about 150 guys at our last one, and we did have a cornhole tournament a couple hours, which I ended up winning. So
I said cheated his way to win. Very clear about that.
I'm a sore winner. I had guys hating me, but that's 2 hours.
Just like right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing all the hard work he did. Over the last 3 days. By the end of it, they're just like, "Oh,
I hope you lose." Yeah, it was fun, but those are really good moments when you can get the guys alone and to share. Because I mean, think about their week. That I'm in a Christian bubble. I do ministry full time. I'm in a Christian bubble. Everything I do is some sort of Christianese. Whether it's preaching or teaching or counseling or meeting or anything like that. These guys that aren't in ministry, they go to work. They don't have the same, what's the word? I just went brain dead. They don't have the same likes and dislikes of some of their coworkers. They don't have the opportunity to share with them. And then, depending on the relationship, once they get home, if they work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, they've only got a couple of hours just to engage with their children and their wife and all of that. And man, any moment that we can get, whether it's a men's retreat or, a father-son, father-daughter retreat, that we can get them away, it does nothing but build them up and help them out in the long run.
Yeah.
I love what you guys are doing. So how many conferences? So 2022, we're already halfway through.
Yeah.
How many conference, or not, how many weekends have you guys had, or how many dad camps have you had?
So in the U.S., our big our big run is about to start. So not this weekend coming, but the weekend after that, starting the weekend of July 29th. From that weekend through the first weekend of October, which I think spans about 11 weekends. We're going to do 27 weekend events over those 11 weekends in 10 locations across 5 states.
Wow.
And so we're about to enter crazy time. So we spend probably June and July. A lot of June and July is preparing for that kind of intensity.
Right.
And then January through April, we do most of our international. When the season here isn't conducive for doing dad camp, it's conducive in other places. And so, Matt's been in Jamaica this year. I've been in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We've been to Uganda. We've been to Guatemala. And then the end of last year, we were in Kenya. So, and then right at the end of this run in October, 2 weeks after that, we're going to be planting in Portugal. There's also an event in Northern Ireland this summer where we've trained a Northern Irish team, and they're going to be doing dad camp on their own. We've got we have a director in Guatemala, a director in Uganda now that are on staff with us that are now leading their own teams. And, we send content, and they're reaching dads and families in those 2 countries. Just, we just actually got pictures yesterday from 2 events in Uganda that were happening. So that's going on.
So you're basically, are you franchising, so to speak?
Are
you actually bringing them under the ministry umbrella?
So they're under the umbrella, I'd say, more or less. We'll write content, send content, control content somewhat, but then we want, all these different countries to put their own cultural kind of perspectives into it. Not perspectives would be the wrong word, but the games and the experience that we create here in America is not going to work as well in Guatemala. So we want them to kind of put that spin around it. But the content, surprisingly, what's been amazing, Jody, has been, we haven't had to change, no matter what country we've gone to, no matter what language, no matter a rich, poor neighborhood, part of the country. We haven't had to change the content or language at all. The message of dad camp and what God has given us to share has worked in all those contexts. And it's been because again, we're all just dads.
Right.
And so fatherhood is fatherhood. And so that's been, but really interesting for me too, as we've taken content to other countries. I've always been sensitive. Like, I don't want, I want to be sure that this is culturally sensitive, and I'm respecting, different traditions and different things like that. But we really haven't had to do much of that or change anything, which has been awesome to see how God just uses it no matter where it goes. But
it's almost instinctive, right? Like the things that you're doing are ingrained in us, which is why you're having young men, cling to the blessing of their father, regardless of culture. No one told him to do that. No one told him, hey, this is a blessing. Now remember, take that to bed with you because it's precious. Remember, display these in your room because they're precious. No, you don't have to tell him that. He instinctively knows that my father blessing me is precious. And I think that transcends culture for reasons that we would obviously all agree on.
Man,
yes, sir.
Right. So you don't have to translate the messages. Are you translating the content to them?
So in countries that don't
okay.
speak English, we will have translators take our, if we have a handout or something like that, or a presentation, they'll translate. And then when we're presenting, we'll have translators that we're communicating through.
But you don't change the format, I think is what you were saying. Right. There's no format change for culture. There's no, you're not going to have to switch it up. It is just, it's vibing.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
That's really cool. So the 27 that you have in the United States, are you and Matt speaking at all of those, or how are you doing that?
That's where the crazy factor come in. So Matt will be doing, I think he's got 2 or 3 weekends that he's leading. I'm going to be at about well, there's 11 weekends, so I can only be at 11 events. So I'll be at 11. So then that gets us to 14. There's still 13 more. So we've got a team of 6 or 7 facilitators now that are then working with the rest of a team that it takes to pull off on a weekend like that. So we've got a whole team in Montana now that is just crushing it.
Well, that's where I want to go to dad camp.
So
you're opting out of Tennessee. He's like, I don't want to Labor Day.
No, I'm from Kentucky. I'm from Kentucky. I like Tennessee. So
yeah, we've got, it's been awesome to see just guys that like Matt that have just got fully on board with the mission and vision of what dad camp is and saying, look, I'm going to put my gifts to work. And so we've got a great teaching team that then just we just go out and awesome. and get and do the work that God's called us to do.
And in other countries, God brings guys into a relationship with us who have this same passion. Jason was talking about guys who are now part of our staff and ministry in other countries, because obviously Jason and I, it's not going to multiply and it's not going to grow and it's not going to spread if it's just 2 communicators.
Right.
And so we need God to bring guys who say, oh yeah, I have that passion too. Yeah, I get it. I see what you guys are doing. We'll keep the foundation and the message the same. We may adapt it to our culture and the best way to present that, like Jason said, some of the games, but it doesn't spread without God bringing other people into the fold the way he has. So that's been an amazing.
That's awesome.
Well,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody's listening right now and they've got access to a camp. How would they, number one, if they called, what would be a process that they would need to go through to say, man, we want to do this in, the Ozarks or St. Louis or whatever, wherever they are listening, we're all around the world. So what's the process there and how do they get a hold of you?
The easiest way is just go to dadcamp.org. We've got an events tab. You click on that events tab and you'll see all of our events, the dates that they're happening and where they're happening. So we've got this year, though, we're going to be the first time in Tennessee, the first time in Pennsylvania, but we'll also be in Ohio, Indiana, 3 locations, Montana, 2 locations, Texas, and I feel like I'm missing one, but I think maybe I got them all. So that's kind of this year's kind of menu. And
on there, Jason, for guys who want to bring it to their area, the heat map.
And then, on our website, if you're listening, you're like, well, I'm not anywhere close to those places. We've right on the homepage, as you scroll down, there'll be a map. It's kind of like a heat map. And there's a button that says bring dad camp to my area. And if you just click on that button and just put your name and contact information, we will get in touch back with, starting a conversation of what that would look like for us to come to a new location. Because our vision is that we're going to be in 25 U.S. locations in 25 countries by 2030. And Amen. So we are marching forward, going wherever God opens a door to reach and impact more dads. So that's our vision. It's a growth mentality, because we just want to inspire dads everywhere that God allows us to. So if you're not in one of those areas and you want to be a part, we want to have that conversation.
Do you have do you offer, and I hate to use this word because it's really not a franchise, but do you have like a manual that would come out and budget material and things that you would need to do for anybody that was wanting to start this? And do you guys go and train them, or do they come to you to get trained? Or
kind of that model of our strategic model is kind of a 4-step model. I'm sure you've heard this before. It's nothing original, but we want to, step 1 is we're going to do and you're going to watch. Right. So we're going to come to you. We're going to bring a team to you. We're going to execute dad camp. We just want you to experience it, to taste it, to feel it. And then, decide, I want to be a part of this. I want to see this grow in this area. So it's a we do, you watch. And then step 2 is it's going to be a we do and you help. So we're going to then pull you in. Step 2, we're going to keep doing it. We'll provide the team but we want to have you be a part of that. And then step 3 is going to be you do, and we're going to help. So
Wow,
step 3 is
okay.
like, hey, now you're kind of leading, but we're going to be there to be supportive. We're going to be present. We're going to kind of be behind the scenes and just kind of filling in the gaps where gaps are needing filled. And then step 4 is you do, and we'll watch.
So is this
And
over
so
a 4-year period, or is this for
it can be
weekends,
more,
or? Okay.
it's generally more of a first year would be one event.
Okay.
So it would be year 2. We might do 1 or 2 events. So it's more of a 4 to 5 year kind of a model to kind of build momentum, build teams, build strategy, that whole kind of thing.
Oh, I like that. Okay, good. All right. Well, guys, we're winding down here. I don't want to keep you too. I think you guys are an hour ahead of us too. So.
We are.
Yeah. We're on Central Time, so I guess you guys are on Eastern Time. But is there anything you want our audience to know that maybe we haven't discussed here tonight?
I mean, I just encourage guys, if Dad Camp sounds like an adventure that you'd love to take, to go check out the events page. And like I said, we're going to be in multiple locations this year, but they're starting really quick. They're in August, September heavy kind of events. So you want to check that out quickly. And if finances are concerned, we've got a massive scholarship program that you just let us know that you could use a little help. And we just want to see guys get there.
Praise God.
And so that's available to you when you go to our page, and there's a financial assistance button as well that you can just let us know. That would be helpful for you. That we want to make that available.
You guys help me get to Jamaica?
Yeah,
absolutely.
You guys help me get to Jamaica.
So we'll be on the next trip, Jody.
Yeah, Montana, Jamaica. That's where I want to go.
I do want to make sure we mention this, and the opposite of what he just said. If you have some funds and you heard, some inspiring stuff tonight, I'm going to share. Actually, it just did on the chat. I threw up their donation page, so you can go on there. You can give. You can support these guys. They're clearly doing some pretty amazing things, shaping the next generation, and really speaking into the lives of fathers, which I think we all can agree, being the butt of pretty much every commercial that's ever on TV and every movie. Dads aren't really looked highly upon in our culture, and speaking positive life into them is incredibly important, because they are quite literally raising up the next generation and speaking blessings into them. So I'm super encouraged by what you guys had tonight, and I would encourage people to go on there, give, donate if you can, support these guys and what they're doing, because it's pretty amazing work.
Amen.
Appreciate it.
Amen. Well, guys, it has been a blessing, and we will be praying for this for you guys. I know you're 17 years in, but man, the more prayer that you can get, the more God just falls upon this ministry. It sounds, I'm really excited about it. It's a great sounding ministry. I think we need more of these kind of camps, and just to get people away from the noise of the world. I'll never forget when I was up on the mountain last year, and the one time that I did get out of my tent to go look, and I just looked up, and I couldn't hear anything other than the water rushing down. There was a huge waterfall next to us, and I could just hear that, and I'd look up, and I could see billions and billions of stars. And, for the moment, I just felt so connected with God, and that's what these camps do. When you get away from the phone, when you get away from the TV, when you get away from sports and you get away from the noise, you can just hear God and commune with God in a way that will be life-changing. And
absolutely true.
You guys are doing an amazing job, and man, we are just blessed to get to know you. I thank Shelby for hooking us up, and look forward to this camp in Tennessee. I think we'll probably be checking that out. So
awesome,
boys. Well, thank you so much, guys and gals. We want to thank you guys. Make sure that you share this podcast. It will be on Spotify, iTunes tomorrow morning, and all other podcast platforms as well. You can download it, listen to it while you're in the car, and we look forward to seeing you guys next Monday. God bless, and have a good one.
You've been listening to the Man Up God's Way podcast. Visit us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and our website at manupgodsway.org.